The new Haas VF-25 may not look dramatically different to its predecessor, but it's actually a bold statement of intent from F1's smallest team. Unusually, that's because of a change it's not made, and it's gambling that a decision to go against conventional wisdom will pay off. Haas's technical partnership with Ferrari means it has access to the latest specification parts from Maranello. That's been the case since it came into F1 back in 2016, with a model based on taking as many of what are called the transferable components as a customer so it can focus on the bits it's obliged to design itself. Most significantly, that means the monocoque and the aerodynamic surfaces, all of which are among the listed team components. Historically, Haas has simply taken what was on offer from Ferrari, no questions asked. Team principal Io Komatsu describes that as the safest and easiest choice. But this year, that has changed. Haas decided to stick with the 2024 Ferrari front suspension, rather than taking the latest specification. This means it sticks with the old pushrod configuration, rather than changing to the pullrod version Ferrari has adopted for 2025. And that's nothing to do with wanting to focus design and aerodynamic testing work on the new rules in 2026, or any financial or operational limitations. The rationale is straightforward. Haas weighed up the pros and cons of making the change. Given the switch to the pullrod is primarily for aerodynamic gain, it would mean re-optimization of its own aero design. That also means a period of adjustment as the potential is unlocked, or, as Komatsu puts it, you have to take a hit first, then you recover. For the last year of the regulations, the belief is that continuity of front suspension will make for a more competitive, well-understood package that should mean better results. Komatsu argues this reflects a team that is now more confident and clear in its technical understanding and decision-making. The implication is that under the old regime of founding team principal Günther Steiner, who left ahead of the 2024 season launching, the team wouldn't have had the confidence to take such a decision and would simply have assumed that new always means better. That confidence is well founded, given the success of last year, finishing 7th in the Constructors' Championship despite low expectations heading into the season. But that success is what Haas must build on this year. Team owner Gene Haas is a hard taskmaster, and despite Haas's modest technical resources, he expects even more this season. And that happening will depend on how sound the Haas decision-making has been in the unusual approach it has taken with the VF-25. The Haas VF-25 ran for the first time at Silverstone on Sunday, February 16th, in the hands of Esteban Ocon. He was allocated all of the 200 kilometres of running permitted in a promotional event to allow the team to ensure the geometrical challenge of accommodating his long legs had been met. Teammate Ollie Bearman is due to run in Bahrain on a second filming day before pre-season testing proper starts. Although the 2024 front suspension is carried over and the car doesn't look radically different to the naked eye, there are other key changes. Firstly, the rear suspension and gearbox are the 2025 specification Ferrari components, including pullrod suspension configuration. The front suspension is the exception, with Haas mainly using the latest Ferrari parts for the rest of the car. There is also a new monocoque, which is modified in order to open up more aerodynamic opportunities. This is all part of what is very much an evolutionary car, so much so that when our resident ex-F1 technical director at the race, Gary Anderson, gave his appraisal of the car, he said he expected to see more visual differences compared to last year's machine. So what is new? There's a small tweak to the rear view mirror shroud. Horizontal vanes have been added to this to control the wake as it comes around the curved front surface and spills onto the flat surface that contains the mirror. There have also been tweaks to the side pod shape as part of an evolution of the package introduced last October at the United States Grand Prix. That includes a reshaping of the radiator inlet. When the car ran at Silverstone, there is no sign of last year's cooling louvres on the engine cover, but given that was a cold February day, that is just because of the vastly reduced cooling demands. The heat of Bahrain testing will be very different. There is a significant change to the rear wing end plate, specifically where it transitions into the main plane. Last year, the cutout began roughly at the end of the main plane, then radiused into the end plate. For 2025, the cutout has been extended, which means a shorter radius. This is all about reducing drag. The transition between the main plane and end plate has always been a big drag generator, as this intersection creates powerful vortices that results in that drag. You can see these on a damp day. So this change should improve the efficiency of the rear wing assembly. However, that could come at the cost of a slight reduction in downforce. We might see more small details when the car runs publicly for the first time in testing in Bahrain, but it's clear Haas has opted for an ostensibly conservative approach. But with the design team confident that progress is still being made in the wind tunnel, it could well be that big changes weren't needed. And if carrying over the 2024 front suspension and a well-understood package allows Haas to get the most out of the car, that could be a strong point in the first half of the season, competing against rivals who have made bigger changes. This will be the first full year of Haas having Toyota on board as a partner, while Haas continues to rely on Ferrari, sticking with using its Maranello wind tunnel and still has its partnership with Dallara. Toyota's arrival will raise the potential of the team. That's already manifested itself in the launch of Haas's TPC programme. That's what's called testing of previous cars, which currently allows F1 cars that competed from 2021 to 2023 to be run. Haas started its on-track running last month, which would not have been possible without Toyota. However, it's going to take time for the full benefit of this relationship to be felt. As Komatsu puts it, this is in the excitement phase, as while there are some things Toyota is able to do already at its motorsport headquarters in Cologne in Germany, it's also having to modernise the facilities to F1 standards. But the impact in 2025 of Toyota beyond the test programme will be limited. The real gains in terms of performance on track will be felt in 2026 and beyond. Haas overachieved by finishing 7th last year, capitalising on the underachievement of Racing Bulls, Williams and Sauber. It would have finished 6th, but for Alpine's shock double podium finish in the wet at Interlagos. Repeating that, or doing better, is going to be a big challenge for a team that is still the smallest in F1. As Komatsu put it, who else in F1 has just 330 people working on the chassis side and operates out of the kind of aged facility it's using in Banbury in the UK? Despite that, Haas has loftier ambitions than accepting an inevitable slump to 10th. The aim this year is for Haas to continue to punch above its weight. There have been significant changes over the winter aimed at sharpening up the team. Komatsu described these as huge changes designed to tackle weaknesses in the team trackside. Last year, major improvements were made on the design and development side, particularly in terms of sharpening communication between its UK and Italy bases. Now, it's the race team's turn to take a step. There are 3 new senior roles. Former Audi Dakar Performance team leader Francesco Nenci comes in as chief race engineer. Ex-Racing Bulls race strategy engineer Karine Kriedelich joins as new head of strategy, and Mark Lowe returns to the team as sporting director. These added positions are designed to provide an extra layer of robustness and experience to Haas's operations. Beyond the new appointments, there will also be changes to the race engineer roster, with former performance engineers Laura Muller and Ronan O'Hare stepping up. O'Hare will be Ollie Behrman's race engineer, with Muller becoming the first full-time female race engineer in F1 and working with Ocon. The hope is that this will ensure Haas makes the most of the new VF-25, having left too many points on the table last year. If the team really is sharper trackside, the hope is that what Komatsu calls the unprecedented level of car development last year can be repeated. All of this means expectations are much higher at Haas for this year. The ownership is not going to expect what would appear to be its natural position as F1's minnow, meaning it needs to be a strong midfield contender again in 2025.